Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazed, and today I'm going to be doing a 7.1.5 update guide for Frost DK PvP. Now, I've been receiving a couple questions about it, about what should I be running, how should I be going about it, and I can't really seem to get my damage that high. So in this video, I'm going to be covering those subjects and kind of giving you the rundown on what's going on. So let's do this.
It's who we are, it's what we do, we've come so far, and now we pay the price, so don't even cry. The world is breaking down, and I cannot leave the ground.
Now, starting off with what talents you should be using, right now I'm using the consistency build, going on with Obliterate, and of course, since the new patch came out, we went Murder's Efficiency and Gathering Storms over Icy Talons and Runic Attune in 7.1.5. As for 57 talents, we're going to be rocking Frozen Pulse and Ice Cap. Now, you're probably wondering why we're not rocking Avalanche or Freezing Fog to increase our damage by quite a bit. Now, before 7.1.5, that was definitely viable to do in PvP, but we got our Mastery, as well, of course, as Breath of Sindragosa and nerfed down extremely, really hindering those talents. And as far as dealing damage with Avalanche, generally during your whole burst, that whole 20-second Pillar of Frost, you're going to deal about 600k worth of damage, which it's an alright amount of damage, but compared to running Ice Cap, which you literally lose a third of your overall damage if you replace this talent. That's what my tests keep coming up with. If I replace Ice Cap with any other talent, I literally am losing a third of my damage inside PvP. So Ice Cap is really important to be rotating as fast as possible, getting as many Frost Strikes and Obliterates as possible to minimize the cooldown on your Pillar of Frost. You really have to rotate that to get on the top of the charts as a Frost DK at the moment, because if you're trying to rock like Freezing Fog and Avalanche, your damage is really going to be hindered at the moment with that major Mastery nerf. As for level 60 talents, we're going to be rocking Winter is coming, obviously, because if they get struck 5 times, that's going to be our stun inside Battlegrounds. You're going to be rocking that. That also goes along with Ice Cap. It's going to give you like a 40-second stun, maybe a 35-second stun, and if you're really lucky, inside PvP. And of course, Blinding Sleet has like a minute cooldown. If they get hit in it, it of course knocks them out. So if you're going up against 1v1, 2v1, something against melee, of course you want to actually be rocking the stun so you can deal damage during the CC. As for the level 75 talent, I like to use White Walker. It's still my favorite one to use. As for kiting, it also adds a little bit of damage reduction while that's going on, and it slows people around me. As for the other two, Volatile Shielding can be good, but I do actually like to generate Runic Power with my AMS, since it also correlates with taking a lot of damage thrown up AMS, absorbing a ton of Runic Power, and then dumping my full heal off is something great to do when you're being focused. As for the level 90 talent, we're going to be rocking Gathering Storms, as I said, with Murderous Efficiency. They just kind of go together, and it deals quite a bit of more consistency and damage than using Icy Talon and Runic Attune, because using that spec relies more on Frost Strikes than this spec that relies on Obliterate and sinking Obliterates and runes into Gathering Storms. As for the level 100 talent, Breath of Sindragosa got absolutely slaughtered, and of course with the major Mastery nerf, Glacial Advance is not nearly as good in PvP as it was either. So Obliteration is going to give us a consistent early burst that's going to offset cooldowns with other people, which is fairly nice. As to this spec, it's really going to be about trying to catch people off their cooldowns with your consistent cooldowns in Battlegrounds in a rotation. And once you get started, of course, it's like the machine. It just keeps pumping, it keeps going, it keeps going. As for the Honored talent, it's going to be rocking Gladiator's Medallion. I sometimes like to rock Relentless on the Orc. I'm finding out a little bit. And Reinforced Armor, definitely want that health increase since we heal percentage on our Death Strike. It's going to be one of the only things that actually increases our healing. As for Survival, Cadaverous is pretty nice, especially when you can just AMS those certain abilities off and dispel them off. Dark Sim's going to be, of course, your CC major ability for Arena. You really got to be taking that if you want to hit any kind of higher ratings, because it's going to be your 25-second CD, and hopefully you steal some CCs, because you're really going to need it. As for the next talent, I like to rock Necrotic Roid to increase that damage and just pump out some insane numbers. You're really going to need that. As for Death Chill, it's going to be of course, your main mobility to catching up to targets, rooting them in place, and of course, kiting away from them for some survivability. Death Chill is going to be a need. Also, if you're playing with some kind of healer in arena, you're going to be needing that to spam on the DPS and peel off your healer. It becomes OP for that. As for the last talent, we're going to be rocking Tundra Stalker for the consistency damage. I know we're buffing up again our Frost Strike, but it's definitely a need inside of PvP because those Frost Strikes are going to be key for peaking your DPS and runic dumping on targets. As for overpowered rune weapon, it's not nearly as great. I've tried it out over and over again, and you've really got to focus on keeping up your consistency with this spec. And as for Chill Streak, of course, it wasn't doing very good before, and then after the major Mastery nerf, it's like, who wants to use this ability, even though it probably wasn't affected very much at all. But nobody used it before, no one's going to use it now. Obviously, we're not focusing on major burst, and our strength is consistent damage, kind of like the enhancement shaman I was playing the other day. But that's going to be it for the PvP and honor talents. Now let's go over to a little bit of rotation so we can make sure you guys are bursting right, because the rotation from the old consistency to the new consistency has changed a little bit, and I feel like I need to focus on that and speculate a little bit to help you guys out. So let's jump over to that. Now, with the original consistency spec of rocking Icy Talons, you would use Frost Strikes early on to actually generate your attack speed. Well, with this spec, you're not going to do that. And as for my macro, I'm going to be using, just in case you guys want that for PvP, Pillar of Frost. I got, of course, my Racial in there, and Remorseless Winter, so you can pop that all at the same time, maximize timing on your ability, and, of course, extend out Remorseless Winter for the maximum amount of time. So pretty much what you're going to do with Remorseless Winter in your rotation using this spec is kind of almost the same thing you would use with Breath. You're going to extend its, you're going to increase its damage and extend its duration by spamming Obliterates. And sometimes you kind of have to ignore your Frost Strikes to maximize on those two abilities. This is also going to be your major generation for hitting multiple targets. As for Howling Blast procs, you're probably going to use one or two while this is going on. And the first time you get some kind of downtime, you could either go Empower or you could go Obliteration and start either staggering them or, of course, hitting Empower and dropping more Obliterates. So I'm going to show you kind of like the maximized burst. I'd say I wouldn't use this burst on healers and stuff. I'd say go for maximized Runic Dump on them, then pop cooldowns, spam some Frost Strikes, you know, stagger back and forth, Remorseless Obliterate. But if you're going to like fast cooldown on somebody inside of PvP, because we really don't have a lot of burst, so you've got to get out your consistency very fast. So what I'm going to do is, of course, run in on a target. First thing I'm going to do is pop my cooldown button and pop all that Remorseless Winter, pop my Pillar, pop things like that, and start spamming Obliterates. Now, I can get off 3 Obliterates before I enter, of course, Runic Starve. Now, if you notice down here in the left-hand corner, you'll notice something interesting as I start the DPS. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start doing that. Once I get to my first downtime with Obliterate, I'm going to pop Empower and continue spamming Obliterates until my Remorseless Winter's maxed out, and then I'm actually going to start staggering them for the maximum burst. So let's go ahead and do this. Running up to the target, and sometimes this rotation can change, oddly enough, based on if you have runes proccing or if you're getting the right amount of runic power. So keep that in mind. Alright, let's go ahead and pop cooldowns on this. Start spamming Obliterate. That's where a lot of our AoE is going to come from. Hopefully we get a proc. That was a nice proc. That's when I'm going to go ahead and use my Empower, spam more Obliterates, maximize that out. And this is when I'm going to start staggering using Obliteration to actually get those proc crits off on the character. Another thing is you want to make sure to use your Breath during your burst. When you have, of course, your Rune of Fallen Crusader up and your other abilities. And as you can see, I did a pretty good amount of damage with that. I'm going to deal a lot more damage out here on the training dummies than I will in PvE because of course, gear and things like that. But if you notice here down here in the corner, if you didn't see exactly how I did that rotation or how I went about that, you can go ahead and back up the video and literally watch what buttons I'm proccing as they're going on down in the left-hand corner. Because you guys have been begging me to download that GCD add-on so you guys can see what I'm using and when I'm using it, and there it is. It's down there. So there you go for the consistency burst kind of AoE going on. As for consistent damage, as you can see, basically I'm giving just about everything I can into Obliterate, popping Remorseless Winter when you can, and dumping runes into as hard as possible. And Frost Strike is more of a filler with this spec than a main DPS. Now, as for when you should pop like Icy Chains, if you're going to dump Runic Power like during burst or sometime around there or after burst or in some off time and you have a ton of Runic Power, make sure you hit them with the Chains of Ice to slow them and or root them, because your Frost Strike at that will, of course, proc up with Tundra Stalker and make it deal a just a ton of damage, a ton of damage. And of course, if you line that up with Obliteration at any point using that, it's going to make the staggering of those two abilities a lot stronger. Because, I mean, you're basically going to be critting with Frost Strikes, you're going to be critting with Obliterates, you're going to be critting with Frost Strikes, Obliterates, Frost Strikes, Obliterates. But it does actually increase your burst DPS to burst the way I said originally in the video. If, of course, you have all your cooldowns and dump all those major Obliterates into there. And then go to your Frost Strikes in the downtime, go back to your Obliterates, go to your Howling Blast proc, back to your Obliterates, Howling Blast proc, and you notice I'm just kind of ignoring Frost Strike for the most part. It's more of a filler, less of a major DPS using this spec. And if you follow this, you should be able to do, you know, some pretty insane DPS on your Frost DK using the consistency spec. Now, this is, of course, the PvP spec I was talking about, but if you did want to take this into PvE, like you really don't like the breath spec, this literally would be this spec you'd want to be rocking in PvE. You could do quite a bit of damage with it, of course, in PvE settings. Now, if you have like the legendary helmet or something like that, obviously it's going to change inside those settings. So, yeah, make sure you're doing that correctly. But that should just about be it for the rotation and damage. I guess we could talk about the healing real quick. Most of you already know about this. And of course, if you want a little healing macro, we've got our IBF Icebound Fortitude Death Strike macro. It's kind of a full heal little macro. Kind of what I was talking about earlier, absorbing more runic power. You're about to die. Let's say you're taking a ton of damage. Actually, I can go take a ton of damage right here. Well, come on, hit me. Hit me. Hit me harder. Oh, yeah. All right, so we're taking a bunch of damage. He's kicking our butt. We're about half dead. He's hitting me with an Uber Strike. I wonder if they're going to pick me up. It's an Uber Strike. And then I'm going to full heal with Death Strike popping off right there. Make sure you have runic power when you're using that. It makes it a really quick heal. As for why you want it to be a quick heal, because a lot of classes will CC you, monks will paralysis you, warriors will disarm you, so you can't get that healing off. And paladins will bubble and things like that. It becomes really annoying with that heal. Also, a nice little tip, make sure you're using your Whispering Crystals inside Battlegrounds, because that does increase your damage, your stamina in there. Surprisingly, that still works. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to do a quick rundown on what's going on with Frost DKs and PvP, because I feel like I haven't given a good one in a while, at least not when it comes to rotation and things like that. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. Until next time, this was your boy Hazed.
Dramatic